Hey there. Welcome to week 67 of Supercharge Fridays. I hope you guys are well. You're probably watching the news. Things are pretty dire back home in my country, in India. Uh, you know, it's a huge country. However, I don't know any family that's not been impacted by this new strain of COVID-19. It is brutal. And the horrific pictures you're seeing on the news and in social media, they're 100% true. So I just wanted to sort of put this out there. If you're thinking you want to help, it's frustrating, you're far away and you don't know how to help, I have a little link and I'm going to put it in the chat during the conversation, which a few friends of mine have set up in Singapore. Feel free to donate whatever little you can, and I just want to say, if all of us aren't safe, no one is safe, right? This is not India's problem. This is a global problem. So, sooner or later, it's just one of those things that's has a potential of exploding if we don't do the right thing. So it's heavy. It's been a heavy few weeks. So let's do whatever we can to help out. And the other thing I wanted to say in a little bit of a lighter note is I have a monthly newsletter that goes out on the 1st of every month. No spam, no fluff, pure tips and tricks and strategies to supercharge your career and just give you that leg up, and that goes out tomorrow, 1st of May. So if you're interested, highly suggest you subscribe. It's free. You can unsubscribe anytime if you don't like it, but this would be the chance to do so because it goes out tomorrow. And if you subscribe after it goes out, you get it on 1st of June. You get the deal. So with that said, what we're going to do today, I'm very excited. We're going to talk about sales principles, and sales is a word that makes a lot of us, including me, get sweaty palms, right? Sweaty everywhere. And you're like, I'm not good at it. Oh, it's cringeworthy, it's icky. Not necessarily. And there are certain principles out there which, if you think about, are exactly what we can learn from when it comes to job search. So today I'm excited to talk about this with someone who's been in sales, been around the block, understands what it's all about. And I'm so excited to welcome Jules White to
Hello.
Supercharge Fridays. Welcome, Jules.
Oh, it's so good to be here. I have been so excited about this. I can't even tell you.
I'm so excited about it. I forgot to get my tea, and this was a near national national catastrophe, as you saw happening. So, Jules, we have so much to talk about and so much to learn from you. I want to just tell the audience, hopefully you guys are live. You can see us. Oh, lovely. We have people from around the
Oh,
world. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, of course. Lovely to see everybody here. Good morning to those in North America and my friends in Europe. I hope you're having a nice afternoon. And of course, good evening to the lovely folks in Asia. Lovely to see you guys. So, the reason I want to say, and I'm going to Jules, let you introduce yourself in a second for those who are not familiar with your work. But what I do want to say is, the reason I asked Jules on today, and I was thinking, should we do podcast? Should we do live stream? And I decided on a live stream because I think there's plenty of questions, Jules, that you can help us answer in real time. And something really fun. Anybody interested? There's 3 things. I have a feeling, this is a theory. There's 3 things a lot of us have fantasized about. The first is a TEDx talk. The second is Shark's Tank, or any show where you have to pitch a product or a service and you need money from investors. In the UK, it's called Dragon's Den. In the US, very popular, Shark's Tank. At some point or the other, we have fantasized about being on that show. And the third is we have fantasized about closing some sort of sale in a way that feels natural and authentic. And the reason this Dragon Slayer is on today is because she's done not 1, not 2, but all 3. So with that said, I present to everybody Jules White. Jules, tell us about what you've been up to, a little bit about your backstory, so we can sort of appreciate everything you've been through till today.
gosh, wow. What an amazing introduction. You are so wonderful. Yes, so actually, I've just celebrated my 4th business birthday last week, which was so exciting.
Happy birthday. It's still your birthday.
Yeah, we're just having a whole month of birthdays because
Yes.
my birthday's the 13th and my business birthday would have been my beautiful dad's birthday as well this month, but he's no longer with us. So 4 years running this amazing business called Live It, Love It, Sell It, which actually started, would you believe, with some redundancy money. They made me redundant. It was my third time I'd been made redundant. What a rotten thing to happen.
Yes.
And I'd got 3 months money. I mean, lots of people will probably resonate with being made redundant.
Yes.
I got 3 months money and I thought, what shall I do? I thought, I am never working for anyone ever again. And I was obviously, I'm part joking because I knew I had something I needed to do that was my own business again, having already had a business before, which I'll talk about as well in this chat. So I started a business as a coach. I decided I would just coach everyone on anything for everything. You know, it was like, you could come to me for anything, you know. And I was chatting to my old Yellow Pages boss and I told him this and he said, Jules, you need to be specific. People need to know what they can come to you for, you know. And what is it that you want to really do? What are you really good at like this? And I said, oh, I don't know. And he said, Jules, it's sales. You've been brilliant at sales all of your career. And he was my boss at Yellow Pages, you know. And I was thinking, blimey, I didn't think he liked me that much. And he said, you need to be a sales coach. He said, that's what people want help with. So I started my journey as a sales coach. And I created a methodology called Live It, Love It, Sell It, because I didn't want to teach sales how I'd been taught. It was too scripted and anonymous. You know, I wanted it to feel like it was unique. And that's what I did. And so I've created that business over the last 4 years. So I coach individuals, companies. I do podcasting, as you said. I wrote a book. I had a TEDx talk in Brighton, which was amazing. So I've had a very amazing 4 years.
Amazing. Oh, wow. Live it, love it, sell it. Now, guys, doesn't that just get you excited? So amazing. Fantastic, Jules. So we're going to understand from you. And I saw this comment and I couldn't agree more. And I think, Stefano, what you have sort of verbalized here is what a lot of us are thinking. And I'm sure Jules hears this all the time. Sleazy car salesperson in a checked suit. And I had a very interesting guest on my podcast, and I know you know the name Bob Berg, and he describes sales as, so not that, because that, he says, is selling something to someone they don't need is stealing effort, money, time, etc. So what is your, how would you describe sales?
Yeah, for me, I think the thing about sales is I've actually been selling for 30 years. So if I put all of that together.
3-0. I'm just putting it out there. 3-0, 30 years. Guys, she's been around the block a little bit. She's not new kid on the block who just learned a thing or two about sales during COVID. She's been there, done that. That means you've seen a couple of downturns in terms of the economy as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Recessions, but equally been trained to death how to sell. And this is the big thing for me. And I was always trained to say certain things and make sure the customer went on the journey at the pace of the salesperson and make sure you upsell them this and that. And there was never this understanding of the customer, what the customer really wanted, what their world looked like, who they were. You know, and what I really wanted to bring to sales was this whole uniqueness about not only us as people, but every single sale is unique because it's with another person who is also unique. So for me, sales was about relationships. Every time they trained me how to sell, I would go back out the door the other side. I would just be me and have a chat and just be curious and listen and engage. And for me, that was the real core skills of selling. Creating relationships, which is why when I made Live It, Love It, Sell It, it was actually, this is the sales road trip. The live it is, are you fit to travel? So actually, who are you? Have you done the work on who you are, what your why is, what you love, where you're unique? Because that has to start with you. If I'm going to buy from you, I need to know that you know who you are. because otherwise, how am I going to buy into it? The
Mm.
love it is about the client, the customer. So actually, who is your ideal customer? But actually emotionally, not just how old, where do they live and all this. Emotionally, how are they feeling? What do we need to do to help them? And then the seller is actually getting visible. So love it is planning the route, sell it is reaching the destination. So it's a whole sales road trip, but it's all triggered in the middle of it by humans and the way that we connect as humans. For me, that's
Yeah.
sales.
Yeah. Connect as humans, form relationships. A lot of people are like, yeah, it's a little bit easier to just pick up the product and say, hey, this is what you need. And you need to buy it because I have to meet my sales quota, right? And
Yeah,
that is
yeah,
unfortunately a lot of people training them out there, and then that is one of the reasons why sales has a little bit of an icky reputation. Now let's talk about this when it comes to careers and job search. So Jules, you said you worked at the Yellow Pages. You've had a bunch of other jobs as well. You've been through Pivot, so I'm sure a lot of things you're going to share with us come from direct experience, right? So, so I really, really urge all our lovely viewers today, listen with an open mind. You're going to listen to the principle and you're going to be like, I know this. Wait, wait. One of the things that Jules said is be curious. You may have heard the principle, but number one, have you applied it actually? And number two, have you heard it from Jules? Because she's going to have a point of view which you or may not have heard before, which is why I love that you call one of your methodologies unique human proposition. So what is it that
yes,
makes you human? What is it that makes you unique? So
yeah.
fantastic. I can't wait to dig in. So let us talk about those sales principles, and they are timeless. They are across industries, across cultures. It doesn't matter where you live, what you do. So Jules, tell us about the first one.
Yeah, so the first one's about being unique, being you, be yourself. This is a big thing, not just in sales training, but also in interview situation. We often will go in and we're quite apprehensive. We feel like we have to speak in a certain way and maybe, wear certain clothes. And it's all very prescriptive, isn't it, with
Yeah.
interviews I've found in my past career. And I think one of the big things about this is I think we need to be brave, and I think we need to be honest and show up as true us, because we'll be different. We will stand out from the crowd and people will really know who they're getting. So actually, after you're employed, you will be you, because even accidentally you'll be you. And then if you've not been you at the interview, suddenly you're someone different that they've employed. So the be you piece is so important. And in sales, it's why somebody will buy you, because they feel like you're being genuine.
You're being
So
genuine. Got
that's,
it. Got it.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that means you first have to like who you are.
Yes, that's the
You
live
can't
it.
be who you are. That's the limit. You got to know
Mm.
who you are. You got to like who you are. It's very difficult it's very easy for someone to say, yeah, just be yourself. I think that is one of the most underrated pieces of advice. And it's also one of the most misconstrued ones. What does it mean to be yourself? I'm a little bit like annoying as a person. Does that mean I show up a little annoying, etc.? So because I've been told be your authentic self. What does that mean? But at the same time, the unique thumbprint that you have that no one else has is your superpower. But you gotta know what it is. When
Yeah,
you know what it
yes.
is, you attract people who are looking for that exact same superpower.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the things that we talk about when I talk about UHP, so obviously a lot of people may have heard of USP,
Yeah.
your unique selling proposition,
Yeah.
which was hammered into us all in our training. But actually the UHP is much more powerful, because it's the unique human proposition, which is actually who you are. So
Yeah.
people are going to buy you. And the things that make you this unique person are your values, your strengths, your language, how you show up. It might be that you always wear pink. Fabulous. That's your ism, as I call it. I talk about isms. So actually,
Can you give examples of isms?
yeah, I mean, things like the language you use, things like the clothes you wear. Maybe if you wear the same color all the time, or if you sign off with the same thing. Every time I sign off my podcast, I say ta-ta for now. And it's something I always do. So suddenly I become recognized for that thing, and that's an ism. It might be just the way you wear your hair. It could be all sorts of really small little niche things about you. But ultimately an ism is what makes you memorable, because people do remember you when you are yourself and unique.
Yes, I got it. So I want to tell everyone who's watching us, please feel free to jump in the comments and tell us what you're thinking. Do you have questions about what Jules is saying? I can see a couple of questions already. This would be a great time to ask. Jules has got a cuppa. I have my cuppa. We're not running anywhere. We are here for you. And it's not just Jules and me talking. It's all of us having a gigantic fun conversation. And feel free to connect with each other in the comments as well. If you see something that someone said and it resonated with you, go back later and say, hey, I saw you on the Supercharge Friday thing and would love to connect. Do that. This is a great time to do that in the absence of in-person events, which is the case for a lot of us. So we're getting a lot of fan comments about UHP. I love it. And I saw a question here. Naveen, you don't always have to sell what the buyer wants.
Yes. So this is really interesting, actually, and it's a great comment to provoke a conversation. No, you don't, because actually you may have something the buyer doesn't know about that's even better than they think, what they need. The big thing here that most salespeople make a mistake on is they assume that they know better than the buyer. Now, if you have a conversation with a buyer and you say to them, what do you think you need? What's the pain? What is it causing you? Yeah. Get that conversation going. Make them feel like you're listening to what they think they need, and now add value, and actually, there's something else I've thought that could be really good for you from what you've just told me. Oh my goodness, how different is that to me coming straight in and saying, right, yeah, I understand. Yeah, this is what you need. That's where most buyers become sleazy and pushy.
Correct. And the other issue with what you just said is, I know this better than the interviewer / prospect customer, right?
Yeah.
That is coming from a place of confirmation, not curiosity. And confirmation and curiosity can't coexist in your head. You can either be curious or you can be, I got it. Yeah. Let me interrupt you with my overconfidence.
Yes,
this is what you need. The person's like, no, this person was not a good listener. I'm not. You may have been a good listener, but according to the prospect or according to the interviewer, you're not a good listener. So they're like you said, ta-ta for now. You're out of the picture. You're out of the picture. Absolutely love it.
But it's a great question. It is a really good question. But it's the way you do this is the really important bit. The experience that you create.
Correct. And Naveen, there's also a philosophical angle to it, which we are not going to go into now because this is a very healthy discussion, but we could be here all day. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. And Lauren's asking, and I see that, by the way, a little plug, for those of you who happen to be on iOS and are familiar with an app called Clubhouse, we are live every Monday at 9 p.m. Belgium, 8 p.m. UK. It's very late in India. To all my friends in India, it's like 12:30 at night in India. But we get together, and one of the people we get together with is another fun friend of ours called Kevin, and that group is called Fab Four and Friends. And if you like what we're talking about and you want to join the conversation one Monday, come in. In India, if you're having trouble falling asleep, just come in and join the conversation. It's called Fab Four and Friends. So with that little sort of distraction, back to the topic, Lauren says, what is the best way, in your humble opinion, I guess, I don't know what that, to get the sales pitches to stop in your DM?
This is an interesting question, isn't it? Yeah.
Cringeworthy DMs.
Yeah. From the perspective of the people who are doing it, they just need training. They need help. They need somebody to be able to really help them to understand how they can pitch without pitching, if that makes sense. Because it's
so other than, sorry to interrupt you, other than sending them to Jules
to me.
for training, what else can we do?
Well, I have taken time to respond to bad pitches, but it would take me a lot of my time if I did respond to all of them. So I have done that before because I've wanted to come from a place of helping. But ultimately, I tend to either ignore or just say I'm not interested because it's much quicker. And I think as well, there's this piece. We did this in our Clubhouse room, by the way, didn't we, Sonal? Where we talked about actually, do you accept requests, connection requests, and do you need a message with it? And it is about how you accept these new connections. I can usually see a mile off they're going to pitch to me straight away, depending on how they connect with me. But that's just as something I've got to know. So yeah, so there's two things. There's the element of understanding who you're accepting as connections, and if they start pitching, decide what you want to do with them. Some people block them. They go the whole hog.
Space. It's your space. Do what you want. If you have patience, today I did this. Someone reached out to me, and she's a graphic designer, and within the minutes of me accepting, I can design your logo, no asking me anything. I said, hey, thank you so much. I'm not interested right now. Can I give you a little bit of feedback? She said, absolutely. And it's all about how you give your feedback. But honestly, do what you got to do. Protect yourself, protect your space. You're not here to educate people all the time. You've also got your own stuff to do.
And understand how you can pitch and what you're doing when you're pitching. Be responsible for the things that you can be responsible for. So just make sure you're not one of those people who are doing horrible pitching.
Exactly. Fantastic. So I see that there was another question before we get into, Ken is here. Good morning. So Krishanu is asking, there we are. How do you stand out? This is less of a sales question, but I want to help him out. How do you stand out if I'm beginning an internship at a multinational company as a fresh graduate, and if I want to get to the top brass very soon? Jules, what is your take on it?
Oh my goodness. Ask wonderful questions. Be curious. Find out about the people you're working with. Find out about the business you're working in. Learn, ask, learn, ask.
Learn, ask, learn, ask. So Lala, okay?
Just do the Lala. We just made that up, didn't we?
We just made that
up
right now. Do the Lala, learn, ask, and absorb like a freaking sponge. Don't let it just like, I heard it. It's out in a second. Learn it, apply it. But the Lala works. So fantastic. Massively. I see we have a few other questions and comments. I promised to get there. So just want to proceed a little bit with the sales principles that we're talking about. The second principle. Oops, I put it up too soon. Yes,
no, it's my favorite. My favorite subject.
Tell us.
Me. Storytelling. It's just one of the most powerful things we have as humans, not just in interviews or sales. Humans, stories. I mean, I can do a whole section on stories. It's just incredible. But it's the biggest way we connect very naturally as humans, because we resonate, with the story. And it comes to life. And there's a really great statistic, which you're going to love. 63% of people remember stories, and only 5% of people remember statistics. So when you're pitching,
write that down, because this is very, very important, almost like a tweetable. 63% remember stories. Only 5% remember statistics. What about the remaining 63 plus 68? What about the remaining 32%?
They weren't listening.
Or they don't remember
anything.
Oh gosh.
But the thing about that is it's a statistic, which is really always amuses me. But it is so important that we understand that stories are such a connector, and we can tell stories in lots of different ways. So in an interview, it's amazing if somebody had a question for you in an interview and then you actually related it back to a story, rather than saying, yes, I've done that, that's great. But if you then tell a story, my goodness, that's so memorable, isn't it? That's a real UHP moment right there, isn't it?
Yes. So. And someone who's listening today, Jules, they're like, I've heard storytelling is very important. And by the way, I've done a couple of sessions on storytelling, so I'm gonna link them in the comments. But if I forget to link them, go to LinkedIn, #Supercharge Fridays, #storytelling. You'll find it. It's there. So yes, horse to the well. No, you go to the well, make it work. So someone who hasn't attended that session. So Jules, they're like, yeah, we know storytelling is important. How do we start that?
I think one of the things I do with my clients, and this isn't necessarily about interviews, but looking at their sales, is I get them to map all of their really great stories that connect to them as an individual. So this is about their uniqueness. So I tell the story, for instance, about my dad when I was a little girl growing up, and my dad ran the local sweet shop. And that's where I fell in love with sales, because I watched him serve his customers. And I talk about all the principles that now I believe are the sales principles that we talk about today. That's storytelling. Most people hopefully had a father and hopefully had a great relationship with them. Not everyone, I understand that. But some people have actually connected with me and said, my father ran a shop when I was a little girl. And immediately we have a connection, and we now have a conversation and a relationship. So that's why stories are powerful. So map out all your stories that you think are really cool stories about learning things in your childhood. We did this in Fab 4 again. We're going to plug it again.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
We
And we
talked about
practiced storytelling inadvertently. That's what we were doing.
Totally. We talked about the gifts that we'd had as children that were memorable and we remembered as adults, and what they taught us and the lessons and everything else. If that's not amazing storytelling, then what is? So map out your stories.
Map out. And the other one we did, which is very universal, is your best or your most memorable memory, most unforgettable memory from your childhood, which is a very loaded question, right? So when you're actually thinking about it, there is a way. And the thing that Jules is saying is connect with the person.
Yeah,
there's emotion. Storytelling for me is transfer of emotions.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to always be happy stories. Sure. If you talk about adversity in the right way, you can also connect on a really, really strong level. If you've had something happen that someone else has had happen, not as a victim as much as having had that experience.
Yes.
That's magic. That really is.
Exactly. So would you mind if I share a little story with you when I was at Amazon and we had a bit of a crisis that day? Start, explain, there'll be something they can relate with. So as opposed to, we had 39% redundant or deliverable. 5% of people are actually like listening to what you're saying. So it's definitely worth checking out. And our friend Kevin has inserted, for those interested, the hashtag Fab4 and Friends. If you check it out on LinkedIn, you're gonna find what you need.
Cool. Have we got time for me to just really quickly tell you a story?
Okay, everybody, get your cup of tea or coffee. We are listening. This is Story Time with Jules White. Let's go, Jules. Let's go.
Well, it actually relates back into the guys who say, they're target driven, and these salespeople who are just trying to get the deal, to get the money and the revenue and get their monthly paycheck. I was working at a venue and we were £2 million off the target we needed to hit. So the target was 6 million. £2 million missing it, which is big.
Yeah.
Our sales and marketing director was exited from the business, and Jules White, who was a national sales manager, was put as head of sales. All of a sudden, I'm now the boss of my colleagues. I'm in the middle of this sales team of 14 who are on their knees. We're missing target by 2 million. The sales room is silent. There's no figures on the wall. I mean, can you imagine? So actually, one might think that what I'd have to do is start really pushing on target, pushing on calls, doing the numbers game. I didn't do any of that. I looked at the whole team, 14 of us, and I said, who are you all as individuals? What do you love doing? Why do you work here? Where are your strengths? And what shall we get you to sell? And why do our customers buy what we've got to sell, and why do they come here? And we started to work as a team on the live it, love it, sell it principles with our UHPs as individuals. And after 18 months, we smashed the £6 million target, and we hit it by £180,000. And that's a true story. And the reason I tell it is because we never focused on the targets. It was always about, what have you done? What are we celebrating? Who's come? Who's new? What customer came? What did they say? What did they love? That's sales. And when our leaders in sales start to realize that it starts with the people, because people equal revenue, then everybody's going to stop fearing sales, and everybody's going to love the principle of relationships around sales. Beautiful. And that's my story.
Beautiful, beautiful. I want to observe a few things here, which I think are going to be very valuable to the listeners. Now, Jules just told us the story. If you're listening, you listen to the story. If you are really listening and you were 100% present, you're going to notice she applied some of her principles. She connected with the audience. She painted a picture, and the picture had details. 14 people, the mood was down, no figures on the wall, 2 million down. Can you imagine? She used the thing. Can you even imagine? So you were feeling it, you were with her. It comes down to a lot of practice. Get this right, because storytelling can make a massive difference in terms of what you are saying and what people are actually listening. So practice the storytelling. Do not wing it. I got this. I got it figured. No, take your time. It's definitely worth it. Fabulous. Jules, national sales manager. You had 2 million down. You ended up meeting 6 million. Wow, that's a superstar stuff. That is superstar stuff. So we are definitely learning from the best. Cool. So I see we have a few questions and people have been waiting, and here we are. Hi, Isabel. So Isabel says, very often a seller doesn't listen and tries to sell you something you don't need. How do you deal with that? So we talked about it earlier, but what's your favorite strategy?
I do a lot of work around listening as well, Isabel, and I think it's such an important thing, isn't it? If somebody's trying to sell me I don't need, I'm basically not going to buy it. So, nobody's going to win.
No.
And I feel like sales has to be win-win.
Yes.
It really does, and that's another principle I think I talk about that I don't realize I do talk about, is this win-win. Listening is a very, very important skill. And Sonal, this is the same as storytelling. You've got to practice listening, because it's, when you really listen, and I've got lots of exercises in my book around listening, and I've done a couple of webinars as well. You've got to practice it, because you don't realize how hard it is to listen. And you've got to try and listen. Sorry, go on.
Check out the book, because everything we're talking about is a little bit on the surface. And if you want to go a little deeper, it's worth checking out. I know it's available on Amazon. And I love that you said that. Just like storytelling, listening is a learned skill that comes with practice. And one of the most, what is the word? It's one of the things we are most delusional about because we all think we're great listeners.
Yeah, totally.
All of us. However, if we were to do a couple of tests that Jules saying in her book, a lot of us would fail miserably.
Yeah. I think the other thing about listening is that when you feel listened to, you really trust that person. You start to build trust with that person.
Exactly.
And there's a big difference. And we know when no one's listening to us. We sense it. We can feel it. So
we can sense it. We can feel it. We have our intuition in there as well.
Yeah.
And our friend Risto says, from systemic family therapy context, the issue of curiosity coupled with neutrality, which means I don't know, it can be applied to selling as well. Fantastic. And such lovely comments. Yes, Lala works.
I love this, Lala.
Thank you for noticing that, Ishwarya. It definitely works. And Naveen says, how do you bridge the gap between a sales owl and the HR eagle?
Oh, I'd need to know more about what that means.
Yeah. Could you explain a little bit, Naveen? Because it's a little sort of a curious question.
Yeah, it's very curious.
Right here.
Yeah.
And I see some questions which are a little bit unrelated to the topic. If we have time, I'm going to go back and promise to answer them a little bit later. And if we don't have time, I will answer them in the comments. So make sure if you're watching me on YouTube and the session is over, I'm not going to be able to see your comments in time. So feel free to put it at the bottom of the video in comment section, not the chat section, because they're not the same. And for example, Indranil, I'll promise to come back to you as soon as I can. And if not, just do what I said. Kevin says, so when did each of you discover you were a natural at selling? And I think that's a great question to everybody here listening.
Yeah.
The time that you convinced someone, persuaded someone to do something that they were initially objecting to do.
My story's got to be from the Dragon's Den. It's got
from
to
the Dragon's Den.
Yeah, it's got to be. I think one of the big things to add in here, Kevin, great question, by the way, and hello.
Yeah.
I think we're all very natural born sellers, but we don't realize it, because every skill you use in sales are the skills you've learned from when you're a child: listening, asking questions, being curious. And those are the real key principles of selling. In the Dragon's Den, I went in and I had a business that had only been going for 2 months. I turned over £2,700, which was just nothing. I'd done 10 parties. I was doing parties selling baby products. And then all of a sudden, what happens is, sorry, my phone just rang then, Sonal. Let me just come back to you. You're there. Sorry about that. And all of the time that I was in that den, I never stopped and thought, oh, they're not going to want me. This is such a small business. I've only just started. I said to them, this is an amazing idea. This is so good for mums out there who want to do some work but still be with their babies. Beautiful baby products. We can have parties, try before you buy. And I was gushing all of the things I believed in about my business. And it was a very natural thing because I just believed in what I was doing. And I had two of the dragons pitching against each other to invest in my business.
Oh my God. So can you imagine being on Dragon's Den or Shark Tank and you have two hi-fi investors like, I want to invest. No, I want to invest. She's mine. No, she's mine. Yeah, come on. The stuff dreams are made of, right? And I love it that you said that. So it comes down to share your enthusiasm, why you are right for the job, keeping in mind the needs of your target interviewer. Not just, I'm amazing.
Absolutely.
I really think it's awesome. You should hire me. Enthusiasm and how you're the right fit. So that's what you did. It's not selling if it's true.
Not like we feel selling is. You know, we have this stigma attached to the word, don't we? But actually, it was me being very unique and me and being myself. All the things we talked about today, the storytelling that I gave them around why the business started and what I wanted to do with it. And then ultimately, you know, the questions I asked back to them, the way I answered their questions, totally from the depth of my gut was the belief that what I was doing was really good. And I think we should all be remembering that when we're saying it's the live it part of live it, love it, sell it. It's just knowing why you do what you do. Yeah.
Yes.
That's where it came from.
And related to this, you know, so Jared says, for example, you know, an introductory DM, is that the same thing as a sales pitch, or, you know, is it ineffective? It's annoying. So Surbi had answered, keep it short and attention grabbing. So Jules, what is your take on that?
Yeah, so an introductory DM for me has got nothing to do with me selling because I don't yet know about the person I'm selling to. So if I did anything, on mine, I have a little video that I do, which is a hello video. And it's very simple. Hi, it's me. So you can actually see me. I'm so glad to connect. Can't wait to know more about you. And then that's enough. That's it. And suddenly it's like, oh my goodness, she didn't sell to me. Oh my goodness, how nice. It'd be lovely to get to know her. I'll start following her. It's that nurturing process that we can't rush selling. We might think we can, but actually it's a nurturing process.
No, you can't hurry. You can't hurry love, and you can't hurry sales.
So that first DM to introduce yourself. Don't make it about you as much as love to find out more about you. So great to connect. I'll be following your content, then start commenting, then start seeing who they really are, and then ask for a virtual cuppa. Take it offline, you know.
Take it offline, exactly. And that's when the magic starts, little by little. So fantastic. And Daniel says, how do you stop? How do I know when to stop myself in storytelling? Like, oh, I went too far. You know, became a bit of a monologue.
Well, I guess this is part of the planning. If you're going to go into an interview, you will do some planning. Anyone going into a sales call should potentially do some planning. And you want to think about what you're going to tell your story about, so where it's going to fit into the interview, and how much of that story you need. In a TEDx talk, I had 14 minutes to tell a story that actually spanned across almost 5 years, if not a bit more. So I knew which parts of each story I could tell and which were the poignant parts, as opposed to, yes, she wore a red dress that day and she had her hair all tied up. That's time wasting, but lovely. But the core bits that I really needed to say that meant something, that's how you fill out your story in the right places, I think.
Yes. I think that you will always know, is this useful or is this unnecessary fact that needs trimming? Got to trim it. And my thing is in interviews, because I've done so many interviews over the years, and I'm sure, Jules, you've done it during your sales as well, when you were at sales. Anybody who speaks for longer than, and this is ballpark, anything from 90 to 220 seconds non-stop, after a while, the brain's going to tune out. What am I having for dinner today? Oh, I forgot to do the laundry. Oh, shucks, I forgot to switch off the gas. Oh, my house is on fire. not necessarily those thoughts. So, hopefully, Daniel, that helps you. Practicing is great. Record a video of yourself. Speaking of recording, yes, LinkedIn user, this recording is available forever on LinkedIn. And fantastic. So, hey, Bob, I can see you today. Your name is visible. Nice to see you in
Hi, Bob.
Boston. Bob McIntosh, my dear friend. So Naveen's asking, okay, back to clarifying the question. How do you bridge the gap between a sales owl and HR eagle? Meaning, this is in sync with an interview of a sales guy with the layer with an HR person. Did you understand that, Jules?
Not really. I don't
Not
know
quite.
whether, and Naveen, are you perhaps asking where the similarities are in a sales interview and an HR
An
interview?
HR person, because at the end of the day, Naveen, an
Yeah.
HR person is a sales. An HR person is a human.
Yeah, as is hopefully a salesperson. And I
Yeah.
think actually when you asked about this, Sonal, about doing this kind of 3 principles that also apply to an interview, I was thinking, oh my goodness, that's such an aligned thing. A sales conversation is so similar to an interview conversation. It has all those same principles. I choose you and employ you because I've connected with you. It is very emotional and actually gut driven, I believe, sales and an interview situation. Often, when I've interviewed people, however much their wonderful CV shines, it's been based on me meeting them and listening and speaking with them. And that's been the bit that's cemented whether I employ them or not.
Yeah, totally understand that. Fantastic. So let's continue with the final version, with the final principle, and we'll come back to your other questions as well. So, Jules, what is the third universal, timeless sales principle that can be very useful in our jobs and career?
Well, you know what I'm going to say, because you just said it actually, is ask great questions. And I think this is such a great subject. Again, these are all great subjects, aren't they? Because I love this so much. We often talk about questions and how we should ask them, but how much do we really think about what the question is that we're asking? Because that's the magic, isn't it? And there's a few questions I thought of that I'd probably asked myself for interviews in my career. And I've written some of these down. And one of them I remember asking was, what values do you look for in the people that you employ? So that was a question that I'd actually asked. And some of these questions might feel a bit like, well, I can't really ask that. I think that's what we do to ourselves. I can't really ask that question. That would be rude, wouldn't it? But it is actually about how you ask it. It's that curiosity. And what would a typical day look like in this role? So actually that shows I'm really interested in what this looks like on a daily basis, But the big ones are the closing questions. So let's get to the nitty gritty, because when we talk about sales, often what happens is we walk away without having really done a call to action or the next step, or maybe even close the deal. That's the bit that everybody's really curious about. How do I do that? How do I do that? Well, you have to ask. You've got to ask. So how did that go? How does that look to you?
Yes.
Does that sound interesting? And in the interviews I have asked in my career, how do you think that went? I've asked at an interview, how do you think that went? And I've also asked, do you think I am someone who would fit into your team?
That's a
I've asked
bold
those
question.
questions.
It's a
I've
bold
asked those
question.
questions. Yeah.
How, I'm going to write that down. How do you think? So, in what context was this, Jules? How do you think that went? You mean at the end of the interview?
At the end of the interview, yeah.
To close
exactly.
it, because you got to close the sales, you got to make the ask.
Exactly. And then if you say something like, how soon will you make a decision? These things aren't rude. These things are great. And if a candidate asked me those questions, I'd be impressed with them, that they were actually interested in the outcome of this time they've spent with me. And in sales, it's interesting because actually your questions tend to come at the beginning of a sales call as a salesperson. And in an interview, you're able to ask your questions usually at the end. That's generally how it's been. I know I'm talking very stereotypical, but that's the interview process I've always experienced.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Same principle.
This is fantastic, because you don't just like leave it hanging. Very nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you. Bye. Take care. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. I've done that, and that's a mistake. And I did a live stream. So anybody who's interested to understand a little bit more about asking, sorry, there's a bee here. The thing with springtime and flowers is they come into the room, and I had this problem last week. I did a detailed live stream of 1 hour on asking not one, not two, but 10 great questions during job interviews. Please go and watch that because it's definitely worth it. And one of the things I brought up as a question is follow up. Follow up, understand what is the next steps, in a way that feels comfortable to you. You don't have to sort of force it, but it's definitely worth it. And a very interesting thing that Kevin is saying here, and I want to tie it up. So Jules, I'm not sure if are you able to read the comments?
I can
Are you able
see
to see
something
them
when
on?
you no, when you bring them up, I can
So
see them
on
on the
your right,
bottom
I
of the
should have told you
screen.
this long time ago. On your right hand side, there's this thing that
Oh
says
gosh.
private chat and comments. They're all there. They're all there, a bunch of them. So Kevin says something really interesting. You speak miles with your facial expression and hands, something that live really brings out. So because we also do Clubhouse, right? So this is a very useful point that I want to translate to someone who's listening today and actively looking for a job. uh, some people might insist they're tired. I know some slightly, it's not fair to say this, but sometimes I know slightly obnoxious recruiters. They have their camera off, but they want to see you. That's not right. It's like a one way mirror, and you're in jail and they can see you, but you can't see them. Ask for cameras on both sides because nothing speaks like non-verbal communication. And we had a detailed live stream on this. So Kevin, you just brought up a great point. So fantastic. So Chandan, what are the things we should highlight? And so I'm going to sort of rush a little bit because we're coming close to the hour. What are the things we should highlight? If there's one thing that you take away, Jules, I'm just rewinding. You said what was the problem
Yeah,
and
so
how
if you're
you
telling,
overcame it.
yeah, if like the story I told about the targets and the way I was thrown into that kind of situation, the highlight points for me are making sure how I did it. So what the problem was, how I did it, what my approach was, and actually what the outcome was. So you've almost got like 3 stages to that story because that's how we story tell. If you've
Yeah.
ever heard of the hero's journey, you
Yes.
often know that that's how that goes. So you get
Yes.
this kind of dip moment in the bottom, but then actually it ends up
Exactly. So,
really,
Chandan,
really
Google
good.
this, the hero's journey, and you're going to get a lot of information in there. And there's a separate, slightly unrelated question from Abhay. Abhay, you have a good problem. You have 2 offers, and you're wondering where to go, how to negotiate. I have a very detailed step-by-step negotiation, salary negotiation video on my YouTube channel, which talks about what to do if you have another offer in hand and how to approach it. And it's definitely worth your time, and take advantage of that. Any other sort of pressing questions that we can help you with? This would be a fantastic time to do so. Thank you so much for your lovely comments.
It's
Risu
lovely.
says, ask great questions. Someone said, school requires you to learn about things after the answer has already been decided. Life requires you to learn about things while the answer is still in process of being decided. How beautiful is that?
Lovely. I love
I got
that.
to follow Risto,
Fabulous.
a fabulous coach and a dear friend up north in
Lovely.
in Finland. Fantastic. So my other friend Lee in Baltimore says, take it a step further and get a metric on a scale of 1 to 10. How likely am I to move forward? Lee loves love it. It comes down to how confident you are. When you feel
Yeah.
confident, you look confident. When you look confident, you sound confident. And when you sound confident, you will ask questions that you may not have asked when you were not confident.
I think there's something else here as well. When you look at UHP, I think I will know you would ask me that kind of question because of the whole of the interview, if you're being genuine. I would
Yeah.
expect that to come from the
Yeah.
rest of the conversations we'd had. If we'd had a really gentle conversation and all of a sudden you threw that in, you got to be careful that doesn't sound a bit out of sync as how you normally
Exactly.
speak.
And Lee has an answer to help us as well. 0 to 6, highly unlikely. So when you use the scale, like here she is taking you, you're the horse, she's taking you to the
Take
well, and she's letting
control.
you go.
Take
Just do it.
control.
Take control. People sort of like you to take control as well.
Yeah.
And if they don't like it, that's all right. They may not be the right people for you if this is your type of move that you sort of feel comfortable doing. And Abhay says, how do you start? We already talked about it. Thanks, Abhay. And um, let's see. Attract clients. Africa investigates. Hi there. I'm sort of just going to run to the other questions because I'm not necessarily sure how this is directly related to our topic. And I'm going to answer you in the comments. So hold on. Hey, Varsha. Yeah, fantastic. Great to see you because we've been talking about you joining the live stream as well. And one of the storytelling that Lee also shares is POWER: problem, action, result. Simple.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah.
Steal that formula. And what Jules was saying, she explained the problem. 2 million, we were down. It's a
Yeah.
serious problem. She did something. There was an action. What was the result? 6 million in 18 months. So it's
Yeah.
worth mapping it out in terms of what that looks like. Awesome. So Jules, with everything that we've shared here, any sort of your favorite bits that you feel, I wish I had known this sooner and in earlier, and I'm
Oh
learning about
gosh.
it now?
Well, I think the big thing for me is I wish I'd known to just be uniquely me earlier in my life, because I am now very much, and it works. It's an absolute treat. And I think it works for everybody to be that way. And I think for many years, I thought I had to be a certain way to fit in. And so I wasn't really being authentically me. And so I think that was a shame. However, I also believe you only ever look back to see how far you've come. That's a really big thing for me. And my dad, I must leave you with my dad saying, because he always said to me, there's no such word as can't.
There's no such word as can't. And if you watch Jules' TEDx talk, it's right up there. She talks about her dad a lot. And
I do.
a very quick side note here. Typically, when you apply or you're invited to do a TED or a TEDx talk, you are normally given months and months to prepare and get it right. Jules, if I remember correctly, you did the preparation from actually hearing about it to actually doing it on a real stage, not on like Zoom. There was a period of 4 days.
Yeah, so it was a 7-day when I got the text, are you in?
Yeah.
Do you want a TEDx, basically? And I had 3 days that I was just working solid, so I couldn't do anything towards it. And I had 4 days where I had
4 days
capacity to
prepare.
plan, and literally stood on the stage. And this is the other beauty. The story I told was very much my story from my heart. It couldn't have been rehearsed. So, it does show you the power of storytelling when you just tell it naturally. So
Yes, exactly. And I promise to come back. So Indranil, so the question here is, when you start at a new company with a pretty big increment, the new company doesn't necessarily want to give you an annual increment because they feel you're quite expensive and this is a sale as well, because you want something. The other one is like not sure if they're ready to give it to you, asking for a raise, asking for a promotion. Jules, any tips here?
So when you look at it as a sales thing, it's about potentially the same scenario would be that you've agreed on a sale with someone, but actually you want to make it a longer term thing. So perhaps building in, so year 2, if we deliver this, it will cost this. Year 3, if we deliver this, it costs this. Is that what you mean? So what you're doing is you're mapping out actually the longer journey with somebody. And so to get more money each year, you're going to need to be able to say, what are you bringing to the party? So what else are you going to deliver in order for that increment to be there? So I think it's about mapping out a plan, isn't it? And saying, so look, I would love to have my salary doubled next year, but in return, here's what I see I'm going to give you and you're going to get for that.
Correct.
So again, win-win. It's the same thing we talked about earlier.
Absolutely. Win-win, map it out. Hey, Jeff, our friend Jeff is here in
Jeff.
Ohio. Good to see you. And I think, Ria, you're joining us a little late. We talked about questions and I also shared a resource. Perhaps go and watch the replay. You'll definitely get something out of it. So, okay, Africa investigates. The question is actually, I'm actually thinking this is not irrelevant. It's actually relevant to job seekers. You're starting in an area where nobody knows you and you need to get visibility, right? Whether you're a startup, whether you're a job seeker, there is a way to see that this is actually applicable to job seekers. Jules, I'm going to give you the microphone. With your best approach, how would you suggest to Africa Investigates for a startup company to attract clients, or best go-to-market approach? And job seekers, listen, because this problem is very relevant to you.
You've got to establish yourself as an authority, I guess, is a good way to put it. So show me why you are good at what you're good at. Show me the outcomes you can give me. Tell me about yourself. So again, it's going to be, if you think about LinkedIn and the opportunities that we have on there to blog, to do a video, to post a thought, our opinion on something, that's how you start to be visible. But in that really lovely capacity of me starting to get to know you in a consistent way, so that it's not just, I'll repeat that because I read it in a textbook. No, actually, this is me and this is what I think. This was my experience and this is what I learned. So all of those things we've talked about today, actually, with storytelling and being unique and being you, but then showing up so that we are continually seeing you. And suddenly we go, oh gosh, it's those guys again. Yes, I love what they're saying. Yes, they said that before, but they've now added that value to it. That's the way to do it, I think.
So I highly suggest you watch the replay and you'll definitely get something out of it. I'm going to take a last question, just in the interest of time. And Daniel says, questions are great. Wouldn't sometimes it come across that we're overconfident? How do you balance overconfidence and curiosity? It's a good question.
I think it's a great question. And again, it's about asking it in a really natural way. So don't ask it like you're forcing it. Be the person you were at the start of the interview and then ask those questions in that same way. And I'll know that you're not overconfident. I'll know that that's just you being you. It will feel consistent. I think that's just such an important thing for me, is that I feel like the person I started this interview with is the same person at the end of it. That consistency.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And when we're talking about connecting, Jules, connecting hearts, connecting minds.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's different, isn't it? Everybody's different. We connect on a lot of ways on human level. Emotional connection is probably a really big one. So, but that's me saying, oh gosh, yes, I had that too. Or yes, I had that memory too. Or yes, I worked there too. Or yes, that makes sense to me. It's going to always be something that just makes sense to you, and it sounds good and right and it feels good. Our gut instinct is one of our biggest things, because it's our limbic brain, which doesn't understand language or logic, and it just goes caveman, safe, fight, flight, and that's literally our instant reaction to things. So
fantastic. It works. Your instincts, your gut, not the one protecting your ego, but the other one is actually a very good friend of yours. So start paying attention to that voice a lot more.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Correct. So one of our favorite takeaways today was La La Land.
We made that up.
And you're just joining us, or you're watching the replay. Learn, ask. That cycle when it comes to one of the timeless principles of sales, which can also help you to get ahead. Hi, Tina in Brussels.
Hello,
lovely to
Tina.
See you here, our dear friend. So fantastic. So I'm going to do a quick recap because we're about to come to an end. We talked about 3 timeless sales principles, which are applicable, I think, not just in your career or your job search, but I think in your life. So I'm going to say that. So the first one is be yourself no matter what. And it's not just what you're hearing. Be yourself. Listen, if you've just joined us, watch the replay because Jules explains it in a lot more detail. She has step-by-step approach. Second one is the power of real, authentic storytelling. And remember the statistic, which is 65% of people remember stories, 5% of people remember stats, and the remaining 32% remember nothing, zilch, nada. So you don't want listening. Last thing you want is to be unforgettable. Last thing you want is to be forgettable. And the third principle is ask great questions. We have examples of great questions from Jules, and I have a live stream where we discussed great questions as well. And lastly, what I'm going to say is, I said it at the beginning, but I'm going to say it again. With everything going on back home in my country, in India, do what you can. This is a fund that's been set up by a couple of friends of mine in Singapore. And a lot of friends are asking, what can we do? Whatever little you can do would really, really help with the disaster situation back home in India. And I have a newsletter going out tomorrow, 1st of May. If you're interested, sign up to not miss out on that issue where I talk about things that I don't talk about on anywhere else on social media. With that said, Jules, this has been amazing. I knew it would be, but it exceeded my expectations. So
I loved it.
A big thank you to Jules. If you guys are, listening and you stayed till the end, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. It's always, a lot more fun and a lot more interesting with a live audience, right? It's not just she and I chit-chatting over a cup of tea, but it's actually having a conversation with you. So take care of yourselves. I will be here next week, and I'll be doing a 20-30 minute open office hours. Come and ask all your job search and career related questions. We'll be happy to help. And yeah, I'm going to end with what Jules' dad said. Jules, repeat that for us. One of the things that he said that you need to listen to, because I think it's worth repeating.
There's no such word as can't.
There's no such thing as can't, cannot. No. Watch out for that. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, Jules.
Thank you. It was lovely.
Bye.